Hello and welcome to some sniper rifle goodness on the edge. So what we have here is the CRKT M40-03 and the sniper rifle goodness. Where did that come from? I'm referring to the M40A1, I think was the original one, sniper rifle that was introduced to the Marine Corps around the 1960s. And I'm assuming that that's probably where this knife got its name. So this is the CRK M40-03, and I'm saying it probably got its name there because this is a Kit Carson designed knife, and some of his other knives also named after rifles, military firearms, that is. So as I said, this the M40-03 Kit Carson design. Let's speak a little bit about that designer and some of the knives that he's probably very famous for. So Kit Carson passed away, unfortunately, quite recently in 2014, but spent 20 years in the military, retiring as a master sergeant in around 1993, and best known for his M16 and M21 designs. And I actually have those here, so I'm going to bring those on right now to do a little bit of comparison. And you can see similar in a lot of ways to that design, or to those designs. You can see, especially in the handle shape, very, very similar shape around the handle portion of the knife, especially the blade shape a little bit different in this case. But that the M21, do I actually have an M16? I don't. Looks like I've only got the M21. I think I did own an M16 at some stage, M16 knife, that is. And then there's the bigger version that I'm sure a lot of people know. This knife has been around for so long. I think a lot of people probably started their collections with these knives. I've had these forever and a day. But yeah, Kit Carson, very well known for those designs specifically. So let's get those out the way and then speak about this design. So apparently this knife was found in his private collection and brought to life by CRKT, and I'm presuming after Kit Carson had unfortunately passed away. And then this knife makes use of that deadbolt system that I'll speak about a little bit later as well. So interesting similarity there as well. So the M40 rifle is bolt action, and the M40 knife is a deadbolt action. So there we have it. Right, guys, I'm going to, after all that, do the usual, go through materials, then dimensions and weight, and then speak a little bit about the design and attributes of this, dare I say it, another very attractive knife. And I think I say that about every knife that I have on the channel. Right, so materials. We've got blade steel of, stated like it's written, 1.4116. I think some people might refer to it as 14116 or just 4116. And it is a stainless steel, apparently very famous, not very famous, very popular in German kitchen knives, used a lot there. And then trying to find a little bit of the attributes of this knife, I find some very different opinions on it. So some people say it has very, very high stainless capabilities, and some say it's moderate stainless capabilities. One thing that people do agree to is that it does take a good edge, but has sort of a moderate edge retention. So there we go, a little bit about the blade steel. The handle, we've got the bolsters, as you can clearly see, and those bolsters are 6063 aluminium. Then we've got a scale, and the balance of the handle is then a glass reinforced nylon scale. The liner is stainless steel. The screws are all Torx and in stainless steel. And then the pivot, as so often is the case with CRKT knives, is the IKBS ball bearing system. Right, I think that goes through all the materials. Let's go through dimensions and weight. So blade length, we've got 87.91 millimeters, may as well call that 81 millimeters. That's 3.46 inches, so that's blade length. Blade thickness is 3.38 millimeters or 0.13 inches. Handle thickness, we have 14.6 millimeters or 0.57 inches, and then a little bit wider at the button, and there it is 0.57 inches. Beg your pardon, it is 0.6 inches at the button. So 0.57 inches is at the handle. 6 inches at the button, and that is 15.4 millimeters. Right, closed length of the knife. So push the button to close the knife. Closed length is 117 millimeters, that's 4.61 inches, and then overall length of the knife is 203.35 millimeters, and that's 8.01 inches. Right, weight, I've got the stated weight, but as is my usual habit, I will test that. As I've so often mentioned, that is where I always find a discrepancy, is the stated weights I find are not always that accurate. Most other specs tend to be. Let's get that on. Where we at? We're on grams, right? So let's check. So my measurement is 117, and there we go. So stated weights on CRKT's site is 119.07. So there is a bit of a difference there. And then that in ounces is 4.2 ounces, and that's bang on with their stated weight. So a little bit of rounding, slight discrepancy on the grams. Right, now let's get this open and start speaking about the design and attributes of this knife. So we've got clearly a spear point blade with a bead blast finished, very, very neatly done. Very tidy edge on the blade as well, by the way. Uniform, same thickness on both sides, and sharp out of the box. Sharp enough to cut paper with ease. We've got a swedge that starts, I guess, about a quarter way down the blade and then stretches all the way to the tip. We've got a hollow grind on the main grind, and not very deep. Again, not atypical of a Carson design, or similar to those other knives, I suppose, is what I'm probably trying to say. Very straight and vertical plunge line that runs into a small sharpening choil, so easy enough to keep that edge nicely touched up. And then we've got this, not unusual again for a Carson design, certainly those others that I showed, a very big flipper tab that sticks out quite a long way and jimping, running around the edge of that flipper tab. So let's just close that. So that's clearly the way that you are meant to deploy the knife. Get a hold of that, and it flicks out with meaning. And I wonder if it's a push button as well. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, definitely better as a light switch. But then you can actually use the thumb studs to open the knife as well. So you get a hold of those and flick that out, and it flicks out very easily. And then those thumb studs also act as your stop pin when they close up against the liner. You can see the liner sticking out a little bit there, and we've got the bit of the hollow that those thumb studs fit into, and that's what helps with the lockup of the blade. Right, so that's, I think, covers everything on the blade. The general shape I spoke about, it really does look like one of those typical Carson designed knives, aesthetically quite pleasing, and does feel good in hand. So the handle, the way that the handle's finished off, we've got the bolsters, and then we've got that glass reinforced nylon for the rest of the scale, as I mentioned, and both of those have a nice beveled edge running all around them, and they stop short of the edge of the scale, so you get a sort of step down effect over there, which you sort of generally gives a rounded shape to the handle. So you get that in hand, no hot spots, very comfortable in hand. You've got the jimping on the back of the handle as for your thumb to get a little bit of purchase on it, and then no forward finger choil. So as you can, the furthest you can kind of get forward on this knife is that flipper tab that does offer you protection from slipping forward onto the blade. I wonder if you can. Yeah, you kind of can. So you can choke up on the blade as long as you sort of pull back on that flipper tab, like as if it is a trigger. You can pretty safely choke up on the blade. Right, what else? I spoke about the hardware, all Torx around there, and that all stainless steel, so easy enough to get into the knife. I want to cover off everything before I speak about that lock. We've got, if we look on the inside there, and I might need to grab the torch here, but there is quite a bit of material milled away. See if we can get that milled away from the liner just to make the knife a little bit lighter. I think you can catch that there, and that's done on both sides. You can see it clearly there too. Right, pocket clip. Let's just close the knife and look at that Pocket clip. Pocket clip is tip up. Very short little pocket clip this. I mean, unusually short, but I suppose it's big enough to do the job. Tip up carry, as I said, quite narrow space behind that pocket clip, so you might battle a little bit on thicker cloth. Springy enough to get into. You've got the little hole, obviously, to get to that little torque screw on the inside, and you'd want to do that if you want to flip sides for the pocket clip. So straight pocket clip, and you can do left or right carry. You can see the little bit of milling on that pattern that's on that scale. Nice attractive pattern on that scale as well. You can sort of see that zigzag Z-shaped pattern running on that. Very, very good looking. Right, so that covers off the pocket clip. We've got the little standoffs, pulley-shaped standoffs or hourglass-shaped standoffs in the back of the knife. So open back design on that, and I think that probably covers off most of the things that I wanted to speak about on the knife. Action, by the way, really good. Nice smooth action on the knife on those, as you could expect on those IKBS ball bearings, but it works very well with this lock mechanism as well. So let's look at that now. So one would be tempted to call this a button lock, but what makes it different from other button locks? Other button locks might sit just off the actual pivot, and you can see that this button is on the pivot. And how that works is you've got this, and I suppose that's what they refer to as the deadbolt. And so what you're doing when you're pushing that button, let's just open the knife so that you can see that when you're pushing that, you can see it's pushing that bolt out of the way, and that bolt actually has two pins or bolts, I think they actually call it. Let's have a quick look here to see what I wrote down, but those go actually through the blade. And what I've done is I've actually brought the little leaflet that came in the box just so that I can show you a little bit what that looks like, this illustration. Hopefully this comes up well on camera. But there you can see, so there's your button that's running through with the spring on it. And then you can see the bolt. So that bolt there is on that side, and you can see those two sort of pins that are running through the holes on the blade. So you push that moves out of the way of the holes in the blade. You can see the holes in the blade over there, pushes that out the way, which releases that blade. And when you release it, those two pins come back in and interact and then lock the blade. So nice little system and it seems to work very well. I mean, I've been fooling around with it and no issues. Really secure lock, no play in the blade either way, no blade rock or side to side movement, and no blade stick, no lock stick, I should say, on that as well. So it really does seem to work very well. Interesting as well is this little extra hole over there. So deep inside that hole there is another little torque screw on the inside, and I'm assuming that you take the scale off. I'm not assuming, you take the scale off. There's another few torque screws on the inside, and I know that by looking on the inside there you can see those little torque screws coming through the liner on that side, and you can see the one's got a little bit of a blue color on there, so that's obviously a bit of what do you call Loctite that's sitting on that screw. But those screws actually hold on. Let me just get that open. Maybe you can see that a little bit better. But just at that point on the inside there, you can see a little cutaway in the liner. And in there seems to be a spring or some sort of attachment that runs to this locking mechanism, and that is then fastened to the liner on this side. So that obviously secures the button and the spring and so on for the mechanism for that lock. So that's what that extra screw over there is for. Nice little bit of detail around the button, and as well as you can see the little checkered pattern on the button, so that gives you nice purchase when you're looking for that button. It gives you a little bit of a almost memory pad there, so that you know where to push, and then that little circle around, that ring around the button as well, a little bit of extra detail on that too, that makes it really, really attractive. So yeah, all in all, a nice solid offering from CRKT, obviously in that budget range range of knife, and some of the materials might be budget, like the blade steel and so on, but certainly an interesting design and something a little different with that button release. I keep on wanting to call it a button lock because it works sort of the same way, but let's give it its proper name. That deadbolt system, I think, works very well, and an attractive looking knife. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think I've covered off everything on the knife. So before I go into size comparisons, let me just once again say my thank yous to Blades and Triggers. Really appreciate their support of the channel. Another knife that comes from Blades and Triggers for me to mess around with for a few days and do this little review and share my opinions on the knife with you. So this and many other knives are available from Blades and Triggers. So check that out on their website, BNT Online. Right, guys, and I think that just leaves size comparison. So I think what I'm going to do is just bring those other two knives back on, those other two Kit Carson design knives. So they're the smaller M21. Let's give you another little look at that. And then that bigger M21, and that's obviously the one with those big vicious looking VEF serrations on it. So there we go. I'll give you a little look at that, so you can do design comparisons and size comparisons on those, and then I'll bring the usual suspects, the knives that I have been using. I forgot that this has got that weird little lock system on it. Let's get that closed. Right. And yeah, they are the knives I always use, because I think people know these knives because they've been out for a while. So the first one is the Spyderco Manix 2. Very, very similarly sized, I think almost identical in terms of length. And weight-wise, I think the Manix 2 perhaps just a little bit heavier. Right, so that's the Manix 2. And let's bring this, the Medford. That moment of silence was a moment of loss of memory. The Medford Slim Midi, also very, very, very similarly sized knives. Right, let's get that out the way. And then the other knife that I have been using, because it's been out for so long, and as I always do say, I just can't resist saying it, I think most people will know that knife. That's the Benchmade Mini Barrage, just to give you a little bit of a size comparison on that too. There we go. Right, guys, I think that's it. Yeah, very, very attractive knife. And again, something in that budget realm as CRKT are, but solidly made. Let's have a look at that. Okay, blade centering on this one. Sure leaves something to be desired. Almost didn't spot that. So may need a little bit of adjustment on that. I'm not sure how easy that is going to be with that whole lock system, but yeah, that one a little bit off. But it doesn't seem to affect the action of the knife. And again, for this sort of price, I suppose you can overlook those things. The rest of the fit and finish on the knife, very, very good. And then, as I said, that action is really good and a good looking knife. And again, something a little unusual, out of the ordinary with that little lock system. I just want to bring these in here and just check those. So these knives, like I say, have had for a long time. Yeah, so that one's blade centering is a little bit off as well. And then let's look at this other CRKT. I must say, I've had some CRKTs with horrendous blade centering. That one's also a little bit off. But all in all, I do think a really nice looking knife, a knife offering. It feels good, and again, something a little bit different in terms of the locking system on the knife. Guys, and I think that's it. That covers off everything on the knife, everything that I think I wanted to say. And then mention, the fact that I didn't actually realize that Kit Carson had passed away. So big loss to the knife community. As I say, he passed away in 2014. But nice to see that, another sort of design, relatively new design of his coming out and being made available for us to enjoy. Leave it on the show side, and guys, all that really leaves for me to say is thank you for joining me. Always really do appreciate you sharing your time with me, and I would really appreciate it if you haven't yet to please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I release a new video. As I always do say, I would really love you to enjoy. I don't want that. I would really love you to join me more often, and please share the video so that more and more people can join. And other than that, you go well, and God bless.